Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
And welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, where every week we watch an episode of G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, in consecutive order, and comment on it MST3K style. And this week, I've got a guest joining me for part one of the best episodes of all time. Occasionally, we'll throw that laud out there. We'll praise an episode as being one of the best. There's No Place Like Springfield. Part one and part two is this week and next week's episodes. Everyone loves these episodes. And so to commemorate that, I've got director, writer, actor, Barry Battles joining me for the show. Barry, welcome to Joe on Joe.
Thank you so much, Joe. Glad to be here.
I'm very glad to have you. Barry, you're all the things I just said. You're a director, you're a writer.
Yes, that would be my trade. Not so much the actor thing. That was a young man's pursuit.
I saw that. I was looking in your credits and I saw that. I see. Okay, yeah, well, yeah.
Back in the day, I fancied myself a thespian,
but still, technically, you never know.
You never know.
You never know when the boards will come calling.
You never know.
Barry, you're from Birmingham, Alabama.
Yes, born and raised in Anniston, between Birmingham and Atlanta.
Cool.
Still in Alabama, yeah.
And you split your time with L.A. and Alabama?
I do. I actually, for the last 10, 12 years, I would be in L.A. for even up to like 10 months out of the year, but still sort of living out of a suitcase. And within the last year and a half, I've definitely made a concerted effort to make Los Angeles my home. Like, I get mail here now.
Whoa,
so,
that's important.
Yeah,
that's huge.
That's kind of a huge thing.
That's leaving a set of underwear at your girlfriend's house.
That's
getting a drawer. That's leaving a toothbrush.
I have a toothbrush, and I get mail here. I even have a few drawers. It's I'm actually starting to plant, a little bit.
That's really important. Now we know each other through our friend Paul Galliano, who's been on the show a couple times. He's a massive G.I. Joe fan.
Paul is everything they wanted when hoping to have fans when this was all created.
Pretty much.
Paul is the greatest guy.
Totally. And he's a good little actor too. He worked for you in a short that you did called Night Watch.
He did. Paul is the Ben Affleck to my Kevin Smith.
I like that.
I guess you could say. And it's funny because people are always, saying like, oh, well, you just like to throw your friends and things. Well, yeah, but it's also coincidental that my friends are extremely talented
actors.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
also you use people that you're friendly with because they're reliable.
Absolutely.
In a city of,
and I know that I can direct him in a way he'll get it. He knows my style. He knows what I like. He came in and provided several different voices for me on the action short Night Watch. But also, if you look very carefully, he is in my film Baytown.
He is.
He is. Yes.
Interesting. So Baytown Outlaws is a movie you did that is currently available on Amazon Prime. So everyone out there, run out to Amazon Prime, load it up, watch it. And it's got Billy Bob Thornton in it.
Yes.
It's got Eva Longoria in it.
Yes.
Daniel Cudmore, Colossus from the X-Men movies.
Check.
Andre Brower.
Yep.
Guy from, I'm blanking on, Michael Rappaport.
True Romance Rappaport.
Yeah, True Romance Rappaport. Do the Right Thing Rappaport.
Do the Right Thing Rappaport.
I mean, Billy Bob Thornton is pretty great. Tell us about that movie.
It was, that was a wild time. It was, that script was born out of, from myself and my writing partner at the time, Griffin Hood. He and I wrote the script. Just sort of out of our frustration. It was at a time when there was just sort of not a lot of fun in movies. Okay. And we were really tired of seeing that the way that sort of the South was portrayed with, this foghorn, leghorn, type accent. And we were just sort of at a breaking point. And
I do declare.
Well, now I do declare.
Well,
yeah,
no.
Your Honor.
Oh, no, Your
I
Honor.
do declare. So we were.
This is Louisiana justice.
Thank you, Sudeikis. But it really was. It was sort of, it was really just set out to be kind of, our Southern anthem. It was my little subgenre that I affectionately, entitled Southern Muscle.
What's it about?
A lot of gravel in the gut. Basically, these three redneck mercenary brothers are hired to go and retrieve a young man back from a very, very bad man, Billy Bob Thornton. And then, of course, along the way, they realized that they got in a little bit over their head. So then, that's pretty much a dinner bell for all sorts of lively assassins and mercenaries to come hunting for the prize.
Oh, that
Absolutely.
sounds exciting.
It was a fun bang bang shoot 'em up that we got to shoot down in New Orleans, and we got to assemble a great cast. Also, it stars Clayne Crawford, who is just killing it on a Lethal Weapon right now.
Oh, is he?
He's the lead. He's the Riggs. He's Riggs.
Oh, and that's fantastic.
He's
I didn't
leading
make that
my film.
connection.
And then also Travis Fimmel from Vikings.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
my wife watches that show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she loves that show.
Well, most women do.
Yeah, that's true. It's it's hitting their
just
demographic.
It really does.
Yeah.
Every bit of this gray hair you see on me is from Travis, courtesy of Travis Fimmel. Because, let's just say he's a rascal.
Is he okay?
He's a rascal. No, he
Fair
was
enough.
a phenomenal actor. But when you assemble, a bunch of alpha males that are just, they are authentic to the part. Like, these are wild boys, and you put them in this environment. It's combustible.
Yeah.
And so it was, and plus we were down in a sweltering Louisiana summer.
You told me you were staying in New Orleans for like a year. Did you shoot in the city, or was it like
we shot in Slidell, which was right outside.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I know
New
Slidell.
Orleans.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we had the luxury. We stayed like through post. They allowed us to just get a house just right outside New Orleans, and we ended up posting there. They brought my editor from LA, to there.
It's a great city.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
It's a great city. Yeah. How much weight did you put on?
So much weight, Joe. So much weight. Oh my gosh! I go back and I look at pictures, and I know it makes no sense of how someone could assume a form of someone else by eating them. But I'm like, golly, did I eat myself? It was bad.
Well, between the stress and just New Orleans. I mean, the food.
Absolutely.
It's the food down there.
Well,
good.
That, and then plus it becomes a sedentary life. You end up, you're running, you're on your feet for 15, 16, 17 hours a day at a minimum, and then you go straight from that into a dark, air conditioned room where you're sitting for just 10 the same sort of hours. And then it gets even worse when you get into the finishing part of post, because then you go to a nice facility. We finished out at Sony here in Los Angeles.
Cool.
And we were at ColorWorks. And that's great, because then you're in the nice plush recliners for, weeks on end, and they're bringing you your favorite breakfast and, 3-4 different Cokes on ice a day, and the pounds just
keep on coming. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's terrible. I think
they subtly change the size of the recliners every 3 weeks. Like, they just bring a little bit larger recliner in.
I'm telling you, if you're not careful, it gets away from you.
Oh my God! Now, would that been considered like an independent project? Was that just your baby? Did you shepherd it from start to finish, or?
Yeah, it was. The script was originally, because when we wrote the script, it was we had done a short film, and we had done the film festival circuit with it in 2007, I guess it was, and we ended up, and it was a little $200 short that Griffin and I had made. That was it did 40 festivals that year, and we won like 14 awards out of it.
It's great.
And we treated that year's festival tour sort of as our film school. That was our opportunity to meet with as many people as possible, meet with as many distributors as we could. And at the end of the year, we had a stack of business cards 6 inches thick. And we had enough to go on to where, okay, this is a calculated risk. If it's time for us to pull the trigger on, for me to do my Clerks, my Mariachi, my Evil Dead, then if we can put a feature together, we have enough people to get it to see if it can find some sort of distribution. And that's all it was ever intended to be, because we had zero ties to Hollywood. Mm-hmm. But I had written it specifically with Clayne Crawford in mind. He's an Alabama boy, and we had a mutual friend, Sherry Graves, who at the time was an agent in Alabama, and she had put us in contact with Clayne, and he was always so gracious to us. And he told me, he said, if you ever have anything for me, let me know. And we did not take that lightly. Yeah. So we wrote this script with him specifically in mind. And we sent it to him in L.A., just hoping that he would, come and, we'd all be sleeping on the floor and, sharing a pot of chili for dinner. Mm-hmm. And we could pay him with a sack of potatoes and a baseball cards. And he would do this film with us. And what we didn't know is that he was taking it to, at the time he was changing management. And he was taking it to every meeting that he was going into, saying, "Listen, you can be part of this, you cannot. But just so you know, I'm gonna do this movie with this guy in Alabama. It's insane but I'm going to do this thing. And so he was championing the film,
Wow.
way before anyone ever gave us the time of day. And it was a manager that he had met with that read the script, and I got a call around Halloween time that year, and it was a lovely British accent that said, I would love to, take this script around. I'd like to send it to some people. I'd like to send it to Tarantino's people and Lawrence Bender.
Yeah,
And I
wow.
was just like, sure, why
Yeah,
not?
sure.
I was going to do it
Who am I?
myself, but since you're already out there, why not? And she asked if we would be willing to come out to LA for 2 weeks worth of meetings the following year, right after Sundance that coming year. And so we were like, yeah, we'll come do that. And we ended up 2 weeks ended up turning into 10 months worth of meetings. And I really wish I had brought more than 4 shirts. So
we do have stores here in California.
Yes, but I also had no money. So boy, were we broke. But yeah, it was.
Where did you stay?
Oddly enough, it was with friends. We initially started staying with
couch
Paul.
surfing, yeah.
It was with Paul, and then we stayed with another incredibly generous fellow that was house sitting at the time, and so we would help him do some things around the house.
Yeah.
Because if 2 boys from Alabama can't do anything, it's we can move furniture.
Sure.
And so, but it was just the graciousness of people and the kindness of people that would allow us to sort of survive and maintain out here.
That's a great story.
While our families were holding down the fort back in Alabama, while we were really trying to pursue this thing, and it really was. It was a really great time. But that was the year that we came out on the blacklist, which is
Right.
a list of unproduced screenplays
Yep.
that are very popular, and that got us read, and so it was off to the races. From the time that we wrote the script until I called my very first action, it had only been 3 years.
Wow. That's really quick.
Yes, and it was 2 years of just development, hell, and then everything grinding to a halt.
That's quick for people who are already established in the business,
Completely.
who are working, who have everything in place, and they're like, hey, I want to do this movie.
Absolutely.
That's a quick turnaround.
Absolutely.
For you to come from nowhere to making that movie is huge.
Let me tell you the tipping point, and this was the secret to sort of that Hollywood story, is we absolutely had removed ourselves from the Hollywood ether. As popular as we were, nobody wanted to make this thing. As popular as the script was, everybody wanted to meet with us about the script. Nobody wanted to touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. And nobody really wanted to take a chance on me directing. And I understand that.
Sure.
So we got to the point that it was already going out to other directors. And then Bob Tidal, who was our producer, and he had produced, all the barbershop, beauty shop movies.
yeah.
He'd done Men of Honor with that great cast. And he was like, you should shoot something. He said, you should, just go shoot something. So that's exactly what we did. We went back to Alabama, and we had a buddy who had just booked a Corbel champagne ad. He was on the billboard for champagne, and he was like, if I give you a little bit of money, he's like, do you want to go shoot something? And I was just like, yeah, let me go shoot a teaser. Let me just go shoot a sample. Show them what they're missing on next to no money. And if for no other reason, it will serve as a proof of concept of that we can do this. Could this go back? Can we go back to formula? Could this be our Clerks, our mariachi? Could this be that film? If we sell our trucks and max out our credit cards. And that's exactly what we did. I shot for 2 days in Birmingham. We were editing it on the drive back out here. We came back out here. And once we had that under our arm to say like, this is what it's going to be, which was just a 5-minute short, to ICM's credit, they had us financed in 22 days after that.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a financier out of Houston.
I hope you found a role for the Corbel guy in your movie then.
He's all over that thing.
Good. That's really awesome. That's a great story, man.
Yeah, of course, man. I would never. And on top of that, he did such a good job, and he worked so hard for us. We were able to get him lined up. So he also appeared in Olympus Has Fallen and Equalizer.
Oh, great.
And
what's his name?
Tom O'Connell.
Tom O'Connell. Awesome.
Tom O'Connell.
Tom
yes.
O'Connell. Equalizer. I like that. That was a good flick. I haven't seen Olympus. No, Olympus I've seen. I haven't seen London Has Fallen.
Trent, interesting thing about Tom. Tom has died, I think, in like 7 or 8 movies, and he dies hard. He's a big old boy. He was also Daniel's stunt double in Baytown, so he was Daniel Cudmore's stunt double.
Cool.
So yeah, that was that's
so really cool, man.
I like to keep my friends working.
That's really important, and I think that's the spirit of G.I. Joe.
Getting it back to
to
G.I.
bring it
Joe.
back to G.I. Joe, it's all about teammates. It's all about friendship. And I think that's actually highlighted on this episode. So what happens is Shipwreck gets in a spot of trouble.
Okay.
And what we eventually learn is that it's his connection to his friends that helps him get out of it. I don't want to spoil it.
Well,
I don't want to spoil it with details. We're going to find out as we get into it. So let's talk a little bit. What's your connection to G.I. Joe?
I grew up on the toys and the cartoon. Like, honestly, that is what that was the genesis of, my creative process, was developing storylines and
Really?
thinking about, how I could, me and my brother would sit in this floor and just play with the toys. And it really was. I mean, I would say that there were two main components in sort of the imagination factor of my childhood, and that would be the G.I. Joe toy line and, of course, the Star Wars toy line.
Awesome, yeah.
But see, the G.I. Joe gave me something that Star Wars couldn't. Like, I came home every day to the cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that was, it was Shangri-La. It was fantastic.
Do you have any? Do you remember any specific action figures or?
Oh, absolutely. There was a rule in my house. My brother was the good guys for everything, and therefore I was, I had to be the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
So everything Cobra, which I loved. I was Empire, I was Skeletor, I was Cobra,
Yeah.
I was Mumra, I was,
Well,
that was me.
That's why you get along with Paul Galliano so well.
Absolutely.
He loves Cobra Commander.
Well, he's a good old boy.
So
Birmingham boy.
you were always. So did you prefer Cobra? Or did you prefer Destro? Or did you prefer the Dreadnoughts? Like the three little factions.
Yeah, all of them, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. But there was just something about the infantry soldiers for Cobra that I loved, and I think it was because you could sort of collect them in mass to build your own army.
Yeah.
And even in elementary school, you kind of horse trade toys with the other kids, and I would always be trying to angle to get more infantry soldiers because the more the posing. And there was something about the Crimson Guard.
Yeah.
That I'm not a cosplayer, but if I were, that would be my jam.
That outfit's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an amazing uniform. I like the whole Fred component to it. You kind of have to you give up your identity to join the fraternity.
So that means you must have read the comics a little bit.
I mean, a little bit. I feel very intimidated in this arena, just in this arena of sport with Joe.
Well, it's just because you're flanked by walls of comics.
Well, it's very
no need to be intimidated. But that you mentioned Fred.
But yes,
Fred's only from the comics.
Yeah, I know. I dabble a little bit.
I love it.
And as a screenwriter, you always try to find sources of inspiration. So I have been known to meander around comic shops, and
I love it.
And,
I love it. Do you read any comics today? Or is that?
Yeah, oh gosh, what was the last one I read? Overkill.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I got my hands on that one.
Nice.
For a little while ago. Yeah. But I'm circling back around to the gosh, forgive me what it's called. The New 52.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of super into that.
Awesome. Well, I hope you're going to be super into this episode of Joe on Joe.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Joe. There is no place like Springfield.
That is very true.
That's what I hear.
And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, real quick, before we get into the episode, we can find you on Instagram. You're at Barry Battles, spelled exactly how it sounds. And you can also go to barrybattles.com, BATTLES.com.
Yep.
And that's there they can see all your shorts.
Yeah, I just within the last year I did 2 shorts. One was a little rom-com, and then the other was a kind of a superhero vigilante.
Yeah, that's
short with Bria Grant, who's a Baytown alum, but she was also Daphne on Heroes. And
oh, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. You're working with some great people.
I've been very fortunate.
You got a bright future.
I've been very fortunate, and it's Derek Theller from Baby Daddy that stars in the rom-com.
Yeah, he was great. I saw that. That was adorably cute.
Oh, I appreciate that.
It was really well done.
A little interesting fact: shot all that in one day.
Nice.
One day.
Wow, that must have been a packed day.
It was a rough day.
Yeah.
I slept in the next morning. It was a rough day.
Cool. And you're out there. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter at Joe on Joe Pod. Send me an email, joeonjoepod@gmail.com, and we'll get you on the show. Tell me I'm great. Tell me I'm terrible. Tell me what you think about the show. And if you're so inclined, give me a rating on iTunes. It really helps get the show some exposure out there. We are growing every month, Barry Battles. The show is like a tumor.
Well,
it's just growing. It's like Cobra dropped a death spore.
Here's the thing: it's an unchecked tumor. You know, it's just going to keep growing until somebody takes a look.
It's true, and we only got about 30 some episodes left before the end of the podcast.
Oh wow!
Or until we have to figure out something new.
I was about to say,
the podcast.
or do we?
Yeah, or do we? Right?
Yeah.
It's to be determined. So I'm excited. So all right, Barry Battles. Let's get into There's No Place Like Springfield. So this must bring back memories. When was the last time you actually watched an episode of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero?
It was not that long ago, crazy enough.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, it is not uncommon for myself and Paul to be hanging out, and for us just to throw one on just for old time's sake, because it does. It takes me back to, you know, to like these are some of the happiest memories. It has such a beautiful resonance.
Mm-hmm. So was it like after school you come home, knock it out? Like that,
yeah.
It was because for us it was back to back with Transformers.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know, you come home, you try to get home in time, and it wasn't. You know, and it was I was just at that right age. You know, it was before like you know the junior high and high school, after school. You know, stuff kind of got started up.
It's that 10-year-old like 9 to 13 age, like right. That's the sweet spot. That whatever it is you're into. You may not stay super into it your whole life, but you're always going to love it.
And then
as
you grow up, it becomes such an important part.
Yes.
That you always want to go back to. I think that's why there's such a collecting culture.
So we've got There's No Place Like Springfield, and it's written by Steve Gerber. Do you know the name Steve Gerber?
Help me out.
Howard the Duck, Steve Gerber.
The Duck,
yeah,
Steve Gerber.
He's an amazing. He passed a couple years ago. Amazing comic book writer.
Oh wow!
And he's written some episodes of Joe before, so to see that he did this episode, I am not surprised. This episode actually has a lot in common with movies like They Live.
Okay.
It's kind of like socially subversive stuff, which is what Steve Gerber was all about with Howard the Duck, about saying, hey, society, you know, let's look at it. Let's not fall in line with the establishment.
Right.
And very subtly, that's what these two episodes are all about.
But I'm also very curious. In this episode, does Leah Thompson make love to a duck?
Not on scene. I think it was in the credits.
Awesome.
I think it's all in the credits.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense. So we've got Shipwreck and Lady J. They're sneaking onto an island, and they're trying to rescue this crazy old scientist who got word out that he needs rescuing from a cobra.
Your message said Cobra kidnapped you and forced you to work on a new secret weapon.
Exactly that, Lady J. So it's amazing how often sometimes with things I'm starting to say on this, Barry, as I'm saying it, the person on the show will explain exactly what I'm saying. It makes editing so easy because I just delete what I'm saying and let the show speak for itself.
Let them speak for themselves. Absolutely.
But he's got an explosive
Where are they keeping this
formula
Professor?
basically that would convert water, your everyday water, into explosives. Kind of like, actually, I was watching this. It's like, ever see if they throw salt, like sodium nitrate, like into water and explodes, kind
Absolutely.
of thing. Think of that on like a massive scale.
Okay.
That's what the scientist has created, but he's got all the information in his head.
Okay.
So the Joes are here to rescue him, stop Cobra from getting it. That's the whole kind of thing. It's kind of a different mission for Joes than we usually have.
Young lady, I sincerely hope so.
But before
I'm going to be honest, this guy's creeping me out.
He should, because right now he just pulled out some Magno device and zapped Shipwreck with it.
I mean, he done broke Shipwreck.
He did done break Shipwreck.
Neuralink. It transmits data electrochemically directly to the brain.
So he just got like a Johnny Mnemonic kind of data download into his head.
Yes.
Right.
But also, in this wetsuit, you can really tell that Shipwreck is yoked.
Oh, Shipwreck's way yoked.
And I mean, if
and
you're
also Lady J, curvy.
You know, they knew what they were doing when they drew her.
They
knew what they were doing.
Knew.
Look at the gams on that.
So the scientist gives Lady J a code word, and so only that word will unlock the formula from Shipwreck.
Oh,
so this is key to the whole two-parter. Like without this,
Let's go, Professor.
It's really important.
It's time for our rendezvous.
So they're going to take off with him. Do you remember this episode at all?
You know, honestly, I don't. I probably will see something that will be like, oh yeah, like I've seen that. But
this is cool. They're getting attacked by fire bats, which fire bats were the airplane that was in the middle of the Terrordrome, the big old
Yes.
Cobra playset.
Yes.
So it's always nice to see fire bats, like instead of a Rattler. They're fighting back, and we're getting that kind of action. This is actually the final episode for the first season.
Really?
Yeah, so it's finishing strong. They're really going into it strong. The previous episode was also amazingly strong. So this is, if you're a kid watching this, in order, I don't even know what I would do. I don't even know what I would do. With the end of these two parts, like, I can't wait for next year.
Yeah.
Like they did not end on like a weak note.
My
The
ankle.
professor is busted up. So they're really trying to struggle to get him off this Lost-esque island.
Must go before we sleep.
Also, I love anything with Polly in it, I got to say.
Really? You're a
I
Polly
do.
fan.
I love Polly. I know a lot of,
understand.
because it's pretty cartoony, so
Yeah.
which is weird because I usually like the more serious
Things
stuff.
that have a little more edge to it.
Yeah, but I think Polly's great.
Well, Polly served his purpose.
Right there was some of Lady J's signature smack talk of she's carrying the scientist without any help. Like, she's super acerbic and super witty. So to see, I love when that comes into play.
Lady J will most certainly put you in your place.
She will. They get separated by a bomb blast. Lady J is knocked out. They're really in some dire straits. This is not an ordinary opening. I feel like the last time we had an opening like this was the one where Dusty and Footloose were in the desert. And it was like them on a single mission, because a lot of times it's like the team. This is like we got two guys on a mission, and how's it going to happen?
Well, let me ask you this, Joe. Do you know of another scenario where Lady J would be paired with Shipwreck?
Yeah,
This seems like a bit of an odd pairing.
Shipwreck was always flirting with her big time.
Well, yeah.
So they had a lot of they shared
You've
a lot
seen how
of scenes.
she's drawn.
Well, yeah, they shared a lot of scenes together. But on like solo missions like this, I don't recall any.
Okay.
This is also hot off the heels of her. She had the solo episode last week where we went to her ancestral castle, which happened to be Castle Destro as well. So there's a lot of Lady J love coming in at the end of the year.
Wow.
Now we get into a little aerial dogfight. We've got Major Blood showing up in Rattlers, and we're going to get a shooting party.
I had a Rattler.
Did you?
I did, man. It was my absolute favorite.
I love the wings that flip. Did you keep the battle panels the damage panels that you would swap out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But because I was Cobra, I would never do that. I would keep my Rattlers intact because my Rattlers were aces.
Sure. Sure.
And honestly, Joe, I think I have another very strong sort of memory and affection for G.I. Joe. When I was a kid, anytime that I would have to go in for a surgery, I ended up unfortunately having several.
Okay.
My parents would always take me to a local toy store and let me pick out anything I wanted before the night of the surgery, or the night before the surgery.
Nice.
And I would always either get me like a Hiss or a Rattler.
Yeah.
Or I made the mistake one time of getting one of the styrofoam gliders that I took home, and we lived on this big hill, and it had this beautiful maiden flight. I had the stickers on there. That thing crashed and snapped.
Oh no!
But
those gliders were huge.
those guys were huge. It was amazing. I'll never forget when I walked in the store. They had one hanging from the ceiling.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh my gosh! Meanwhile, Lady J and Shipwreck, they're trying to crash. They're trying to land in the aircraft carrier. I believe it's the Flag aircraft carrier, and they crashed off the ship. So they didn't make it on the ship. Lady J is climbing up the side on a rope ladder, and meanwhile Shipwreck, he gets blown and knocked into the water.
That's not a good situation.
No, he's not.
That thing's taking a lot of water.
He's drowning, and you know what? If a sailor's gonna die, I think go out at sea.
Go out at sea. Why not?
Go out at sea. Why not?
I think that's what he would want.
Yeah, so we got a man overboard. Torpedo shows up. We're going to get a rescue team going on.
Shipwreck will drown.
Shipwreck's drowning. This is like severe. The Sky Strikers are jacked up. This is real drama.
This is a lot of drama.
You know what I'm saying?
Cobra right now has the upper hand. And I don't mean the Cobra upper hand.
100%.
They've got the upper hand.
They got the real upper hand. And Shipwreck's drowning, banging on glass.
Polly's freaking out.
Yeah, the banging on the glass, like drowning with the glass above water, is absolutely one of my biggest nightmares of all time. I mean, there is very few things more frightening.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to the commercial with Shipwreck sinking into the ocean.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages.
Today's Filecard Feature is on the Dreadnock driver, codenamed Thrasher. His file name is unknown. Thrasher was spoiled rotten as a child by his nice middle-class parents in their nice middle-class neighborhood. He was never disciplined, since that might, quote, stifle energies that he might need later in life. He was never denied anything he asked for, even though he had bad luck with pets, and all his playmates were mysteriously, quote, accident-prone. After his parents were crippled in the car wreck that may or may not have had anything to do with Thrasher's repair work on the brakes, the wild child wandered into the swamps, where he could do what he wanted to living things and inanimate objects alike. It was in the swamps where he met up with Zartan and the Dreadnoughts and was welcomed into the fold. Even by Dreadnock standards, this guy is pretty low. He derives slight sensation, which almost registers as pleasure on his primal central nervous system, from inflicting misery and suffering on sentient beings. He doesn't like you either. Thrasher is a lacrosse player turned biker. He wears lacrosse gear. It looks like at first glance, it looks like it could be football pads, but it's actually lacrosse pads. And his weapon is a modified lacrosse stick. In the triangular section, it's got a pointed ball sticking in it. And I wonder if that's meant to be like an explosive that he could hurl and throw with the lacrosse stick. According to his file card, he is basically a serial killer. So congratulations, Thrasher, you are a serial killer. He drove the Thunder Machine. Now, the Thunder Machine was one of the coolest toys. It was the souped-up Trans Am, or at least had a Trans Am front on it, but it had a complete jet engine in the back for propulsion, kind of like the 66 Batman Batmobile. I once strapped a Estes model rocket to the underside of that Thunder Machine because, hey, it had a rocket engine, so why not give it a real rocket engine? And I launched it, and it took off amazingly. Eventually, it hit it hit the grass and then shot straight up in the air and flew, 50 feet up in the air. It landed, and it broke a little bit, but it actually was surprisingly sturdy when it landed. So, Thrasher, upon further review, you are a serial killer. I'm actually glad that the Dreadnoughts found you because they probably kept some bodies away from the Florida swamps. Thrasher, we don't salute you because you are absolutely insane.
Now, back to G.I. Joe.
So it's like it hit on all your fears
What
right there.
happened?
Oh, gosh.
And now he wakes up and he's staring at a beautiful nurse.
Absolutely.
Turns out someone must have saved him, right?
Well, in either that or he's in heaven.
Or maybe he's
Maybe he's in heaven.
Maybe it was the Lost Island.
Oh,
maybe it's Lost. Maybe
what?
this is a prequel to Lost. The
Karma,
whole thing. Right?
Cobra, Dharma Initiative. What?
This episode does do a couple things. So he talks about his family. He says his Uncle Al, he's the only family I got.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a previous episode where he had a little nephew that was also adopted. It was an adopted nephew, but it was like the kid was kidnapped by Cobra. So and Shipwreck himself was adopted.
Right.
So Shipwreck's got a weird family thing going on.
He does have a weird
He
family.
often, I think maybe the hit on his head. And who walks in?
His wife and child.
Mara. And who was Mara? She was the mermaid that he fell in love with a few episodes ago. She got transformed by a Cobra. She was a Cobra agent who got transformed to being a water breather. And they were going to make a series of underwater soldiers. And she met Shipwreck and they fell in love, but she couldn't live out of water.
6
And now she's
years
here.
ago?
And now she's
You
here.
really don't
and now it's
remember?
also
Nothing.
6 years later.
Tell me all of it.
He's got gray beard. He's got
but
a
I feel
daughter.
silly telling this story to the man
And
who
here we're
lived
going
it.
to find out what happened.
I guess I should start
So
with
let's
the flag.
listen to Mara as she tells us what happened.
Well, the Rattlers dealt her a fatal blow. She went down. But fortunately, most of the Joes survived. In the confusion and panic, though, you'd been given up for lost. But at the last possible moment, you managed to escape a watery grave. You were washed ashore on a desert island, marooned, but you refused to admit defeat. On a primitive raft of logs and vines, you crossed the Pacific, all the way to Pearl Harbor. There, you arranged transportation back to Joe headquarters, where you were given a hero's welcome and a medal. With the information Professor Mullaney had given you, the Joes staged a massive assault on Cobra's Temple Alpha. You were the hero of the battle. Single-handed, you fought your way into Cobra Commander's throne room and took him captive. Cobra was smashed forever.
I was
That's
the
really
big
cool.
hero, huh?
That's so cool. We just like caught a glimpse of like the future of G.I. Joe. That's such a great recap. But Shipwreck doesn't remember any of it. Now, Barry, before we started this show,
Yes.
you mentioned that you had a story about being on the set of G.I. Joe 2.
I did.
Tell us, listeners, because I'm sure we'd love to hear it. I do
Well,
not know the
you
story.
The path to Hollywood is not always champagne and caviar. It's one of the worst, most embarrassing experiences of my life was on that set. At least professionally speaking. I had met with several executives of one of the main producers on that movie, and they were in talks with me about a film that they had, and so I had given them some, basically my take on it. Now, this wasn't, like a fully fleshed out thing. This is just like, well, this is what I would do, ... And they really responded well to that.
Yeah.
And then, that made, and I was like, well, okay, well, could you want to meet and like tell the other guy? Like, okay, man, tell the other guy. Okay, they both like it. All right. And then it becomes a thing to where it was, well, you sit down and we just want you to meet the producer. Mm-hmm. Meet the producer. And he was doing G.I. Joe at the time. And it was just like, all right, cool. So they were like, well, yeah, just come to the set and and he'll meet with you. Just wants to meet with you, and just to kind of get to know you, put a face to a name. And I think he had maybe seen a little bit of what I'd done at that point. I don't know if he had seen the film or not. And so I go down to the set and they were filming this. I want to say it was in New Orleans.
They did
and Retaliation. Yeah. And so and I also had several friends that were on it in like the stunt department.
Sure.
And, some other things. So it was great. There were a lot of my crew members that were on that movie.
Did you see The Rock?
I did. I will be honest with you. I walked out of there with such. It was. I'll get to that. Anyway, so they were like, well, here, the producer, he's on his way. Just wait here in Channing's trailer.
Okay.
And so Channing wasn't on set that day, so I went and I waited in Mr. Tatum's trailer. Now this is how crazy of a small world it is. Yet another Alabama guy.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and just very nervous and waiting on a juggernaut to come and sit down and just to meet. And general meets are great. You talk about some things, you kind of get a feel for each other, but it's nothing that formal.
Yeah.
So he comes in and he sits down and he goes, okay, let me hear it. I was like, let you hear what? And he was expecting a full boarded pitch.
Oh, no.
And I was under the impression, and I was told by my people that it was just a general. And so needless to say, I had like they always say, and I firmly believe this, never tap someone on the shoulder until you're absolutely ready for them to turn around.
Yeah. Because
you're not going to get opportunities like that again. And then sure enough, it was just terrible. It was terrible. I was embarrassed. He was very frustrated. And it was just a terrible, terrible meeting. And I think probably the whole experience, and you never know how things shake out, but it certainly it hurt me for that film. I was no longer in talks with them to do anything with them. And it was.
On that sad note, we go to commercial. Joe and Joe listeners, I've got a major deal for you today. You've heard me talk about working at Golden Apple Comics, LA's oldest and greatest comic book store. Well, now you have the opportunity to shop at Golden Apple Comics. We do have an online store on eBay, and right now we are having a spring sale from April 17th to April 23rd. You can save 30% off on thousands of items. Go to goldenapplecomics.com and you'll see the ad for it. Click on it. It'll take you right to their eBay page, and you'll see we've got some amazing books for sale. We've got Marvel Spotlight, 30% off. Old Mad Magazines, 30% off. Micronauts, 30% off. Iron Man comics, 30% off. Simpsons comics, 30% off. All the way down the line. There's Flintstones, Flash, Secret Origins, The Nom. If you're listening to G.I. Joe, I know you were a fan of The Nom. So we've got one of the Nom trade paperbacks for only $5.58. This is long out of print and probably won't be back in print for a long time. So go to goldenapplecomics.com, click on their eBay sale. And remember, when you're checking out, tell them Joe on Joe sent you.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
Well, quick recap. Shipwreck got taken to the hospital with some head pains. And he, so he's having some issues with his head. So he's really in some pain. Not unlike the pain Barry Battles was in on the set of G.I. Joe 2.
It was not a great day. It was not a great day.
Man,
so you know that moment in Black Hawk Down when the RPG strikes the building right next to the guys, and once they sort of regain their senses, they still just can hear nothing but this muffled buzzing.
Yeah.
I stayed in that fog for like 2 hours as I was, after I'd even like left the set. I was like, what happened? Like how, like it was so embarrassing, and it was,
man.
it was
like
a
someone's
terrible
going to
turn.
steal it from you at any moment.
And yeah, so that sadly is my set from the my story from the set of G.I. Joe 2.
Wow, I'm
rough.
sorry. It's a growing pain thing.
It is, but you know what? There's a great life lesson in there, and that's this: always be prepared.
Yeah.
Always be prepared. If you have an opportunity, if you have an audience with someone of that magnitude, I don't care if they just think if you just think it's a general.
Be ready with it.
Be ready. Just always be ready. And I promise
It's a
you,
great
I've
lesson.
never walked into another meeting without being locked and loaded.
Yeah, it's a great lesson, and not just for creative types. It's a great lesson for whatever you do, whatever your occupation is out there.
Absolutely.
If there's something you want to accomplish, there's something you want to achieve, and you know that, get as well rehearsed in that, get as on top of your game for that, and be ready, because one day someone's going to say, hey, did you ever hear of this?
Yep.
Or are you interested in trying this out? And be ready to go.
Absolutely. And and at the end of the day, everyone was just, wires were crossed, this, that, and the other. So, but I paid the price for it.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have been
It's
anyone
too bad.
else's responsibility but my own.
Yeah.
So, take responsibility for your own life
It's
and be prepared.
the secondary lesson there, too.
Absolutely. Don't put the fate of your career and your life in the hands of someone else.
Yeah.
And so, that was a hard lesson, but boy, I learned it, and I'll never forget it.
And that's important, and you got a great attitude on it. And also, you're going to meet more. You're going to meet more high players. You're going to be in that situation.
Well, absolutely, and and I've been very fortunate, even since then. But boy, I tell you, you never forget things like that.
Yeah.
The doll,
We got a cool moment here on the show.
Better looking than Lady J.
The doll, Shipwreck, is my fiancée. You give new meaning to the word
I like what they did here. So, viewers, Shipwreck was still having his headaches, but now we find out that he's running a marina, and he's running it with Torpedo, and Flint just came up. And we learned Lady J was killed that night on the flag. And I like what they did there. For that Flint, for that character model, they drew him older.
Yeah.
They put his hairline back a little bit. Like, he looked older.
I honestly thought that was Ronald Reagan for a split second.
Yeah. It had that look to it. So something's not right. But he's got Polly. He's dreaming about car washes.
Well, now this also begs another question. How long do parrots live?
Oh, I think parrots live a long time.
Well,
I think aren't there like 100-year-old parrots? and
Wow, I did not
stuff?
know.
Aren't there like really old parrots?
I'll be honest with you, my depth of knowledge in the parrot world is just minimal.
Well, definitely more than 6 years. Guarantee more than 6 years.
Copy
So
that.
Roadblock pulls up. Here's also another cool thing. Oh no, that's nasty.
He's melting!
Okay, Roadblock just melted right in front of
Okay,
Shipwreck's
Mac,
eyes.
take it easy. We'll get you some help.
I don't need help. He does.
Some guys come to help him, and by help him, they mean assault him.
It's like the guys at the beginning of Logan. They were there to help him.
Right. Some local thugs just run up and punch. Here's a man in distress who's obviously put out by something.
Well, I'm gonna
and,
tell you,
and the solution is punch him.
Joe, I don't know how you were raised, but anytime I see someone in need of help, I immediately walk up and punch them right in the face.
Well, Shipwreck ends up in
This is
jail,
where it ends,
and now he gets dropped into a prison, and he's surrounded by Scarlet, Flint and Scarlet are in their G.I. Joe togs, and they just
Now they're
melted.
melting.
Everyone's melting now. He's going crazy. Torpedo's there. I'm not sure who the other one is. They probably identified him earlier, maybe, but it looks like it might be Barbecue or
It's down
something.
to you and me, plankton
But
face.
they're all melting into like this goo, and it's similar to the moment in the movie They Live when he puts the glasses on and
Yes.
sees them all for all the things. So
Yeah.
it's a melty thing, and I'm sure there's melty movies and concepts we can think of, but
because
this is like
I don't believe you.
Shipwreck's seeing these people for what they're not. or for what they really are.
Did I miss something in the episode? Was there a catalyst for why he's now seeing that? Was he able to like put two and two together? Did he see something that triggered now that he's seeing the melting?
The melting is
Scarlet, don't go.
he's having these headaches, and so he's getting we don't. Well, I mean, I know because I watched both episodes, but he doesn't know, and we don't know. We think he's cracking up,
right?
So as far as we know,
these
people
lost
are
it.
just as all in his head,
right?
I mean, who melts, right?
Right.
Like what? And now they're all forming this giant blob. Like this could literally be he could be insane. He could just be suffering from the concussion,
right?
Head trauma. And they become this giant blob that kind of sucks Shipwreck in, and it's moving him through the wall. And we're going to be continued with Shipwreck in some serious trouble, Barry.
I also like that because with the whole blob and the consuming of Shipwreck, it felt very much like what they were doing with Renegades. And the
Yeah, so this is it's a horror movie.
It's very much a horror
movie. Is absolutely a horror movie. What'd you think?
It's fantastic. Yeah, the thing about like this episode is that I didn't, when you're a kid, you're just kind of like along for the ride and you're seeing the cool things that you connect to, but you don't realize sort of the scope and the scale and the magnitude of the storytelling that they're actually giving. You watch it as an adult, and then especially an adult in this industry, and you kind of see it more for what it is.
Right.
And you appreciate it a lot more. Like that had a lot more, gravitas to it in terms of the story than I think a lot of these cartoons, a lot of these episodes are given the credit for.
That's exactly the word I was going to use, gravitas. Like and I think it's probably a lot to do with Steve Gerber, and there's other writers on there too that have done that too. Flint Dille's episodes are always like that. There's always a deeper meaning,
Right.
And in this case, it's like they want it to be more than just an adventure show. They want to have a little bit of a subtle message about whatever the topic is. They want more to it than just action and adventure and airplanes and selling toys and stuff. They want to tell a human drama story, and I think that's what we're getting in this. It's super horror-y, super scary.
You watch this in comparison to and not every episode is going to be your gold standard, but you watch this versus like the Vipers coming. And it's quite
it's a bold. No,
what I mean?
No, you're totally right. The Viper's coming. I love that episode, but that is a dividing line.
That's
people
just
either
some
hate it or
shenanigans.
Right, exactly.
That's just some pure shenanigans.
Total shenanigans. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a great and also made really well though.
Right.
And I think these are two great examples of for this show of you got the Viper, which 100% understands it's a cartoon and we're living in a cartoon world and we're gonna have fun with it. And then you get No Place Like Springfield, which is, I'm telling a serious like horror movie.
Completely.
But they're both really done well.
Right.
And they're competently done.
And again, different writers, different directors, they'll bring, different sort of their own influences into the material. That's a little harder to do even in television.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's even that much harder to do in animation.
Do you have any aspirations for doing animation?
It's funny you mention that.
Oh, I was not prompted.
No, it's not. Yes, I am. I believe I'll be stepping into that arena in the next year or two.
I love it. When you can talk about it, I want you back on the show.
Absolutely.
And we'll plug that.
Yeah, it's some very cool stuff, man. I think you'll dig it.
This was awesome. This is actually our first time getting to know each other. It's really nice meeting you, man.
Pleasure to meet you.
I love it, and I look forward to knowing you and watching your stuff and blossom and grow.
Buddy, thank you so much for having me.
Remember, if you're out there, you can find Barry Battles' work at Barry Battles on Instagram, barrybattles.com. You find me at Joe on Joe Pod. Send me an email, joeonjoepod@gmail.com, and give us a review. And most of all, now you're Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.